My name is Gary Bontrager, host of Mindset Growth Podcast. I want to welcome you to another episode. We are so excited for our next guest. I have Heather, my co-host, here with me tonight. And Heather, one of the things that I'm excited about is what this person has done for a living, some of the people he's worked with. And the short time I met him, it seems like there's just a wealth of information and knowledge there. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things you learned?
I'm excited about his name. Truly, the name of his business. It's like it was meant to be. I
know, it's catchy. We will discuss that with him, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. It's super interesting because I heard about his name before I met him. Mm-hmm. And so he has actually, superseded his name, I would say. He's a wonderful human, wonderful person.
Without any further ado,
Joel Oney. And we probably should introduce you as Joel M. Oney, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that
Joel Money.
You aren't even going to give us a chance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that is my nickname, J Money. Uh-huh. Just from 25 years in the banking industry, my initials, were JM, and my last name being Oney, I would sign my name J.M. Oney, and over the years it just became J Money, and it stuck. So that's been my nickname in the banking.
So you did not have to think too hard when it was time to start a business, how to name it.
We did not, hire a branding firm or a consulting firm to advise us. We just picked the name and ran with it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, look at all the money that you saved on that.
Yeah, all the J Money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a great name. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up, and a little bit about, so we can understand, the audience can understand what your, foundation was maybe for what took you to where you ended up.
Sure, and just back to the name for a moment. Most people, when they hear the name J Money, they have a much different vision of who might be showing up,
a gold chain with a dollar sign.
Well, whatever vision that might be, it's usually not this, right? And so it's been kind of interesting. Some people have told me I need to work on my persona just a little bit more to match my name, but I think I like it just the way it is. So
you could be a rapper with that name.
Yeah, no, I don't think I could be a rapper with any kind of name. So, but I grew up on a farm, like many of your guests. I've listened to several of your podcasts, and many of your guests have a similar background to me. I grew up farming. I had an older brother who became the farmer in the family, and so I had to find something else to do in life, so I went into banking. And was in banking for about 25 years, but really enjoyed the time of my life as a farm boy. Interesting, times when you grew up milking cows and baling hay. A lot of other things in life just seemed, pretty easy after that, right?
Right.
But banking challenged me in a different way and caused me to grow in many ways. And so wouldn't trade my years as a farm boy nor as a banker for anything.
So did you grow up in a larger, obviously smaller town if you were a farm kid, mm-hmm. and in the country, went to a small high school, I assume? And
yeah, I went to a small school. I think I graduated with 72 kids. I was the class president and president of the FFA and 4-H club, those kinds mm-hmm. of things. Just really enjoyed and always sort of was drawn to, some of those leadership things when I was in school. And so that kind of followed into my professional life as well. And, but yeah, small town USA is where I grew up.
So if you were interested in like being a leader in FFA and some things like that, were your parents encouraging you to do this? Is this something you naturally took on?
Yeah, it's interesting. My parents, I had great parents, but they were not really engaged with me on a daily basis. I had older siblings that they were engaged with, and then I had a younger sister who was 8 years younger than me. Mm. And so I always said that when my younger sister was born, my parents just said, "Okay, Joel, you're on your own." So I tell people I've been on my own since I was 8 for the most part.
I feel your pain there. That middle child they don't care about.
Yeah, big family and so forth. So while I had great parents, they didn't talk with me about those kinds of things. Right. It was just something that I gravitated towards. I enjoyed the challenge of helping to solve issues that were bigger than just my own individual issues. And so I I think that is what always drawn me to leadership. Yeah.
Excellent. No, I just know, I think that's kind of the history of farm kids. I know my own experience was I was excited to go to school until they woke me up without any warning one morning and said, if you can go to school, you can feed calves. And then life changed and the work schedules changed and those things. But, really it's foundational in where we go in life. So I think they teach us those things in a different way rather than sitting us down and saying, okay, set goals and be motivated.
Yes.
You just learn it to become habit.
Motivation was just a part of the household.
Right.
Yes.
They had different ways of teaching that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So is there something that happened along the way with you needing to choose a different field since farming wasn't going to be it for you on your family farm that pushed you towards banking?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because, I think I always envisioned myself as probably being a farmer. And I went off to college. I was the first man in our family. I had some sisters that went off to college, but who were the first individuals in our family to ever go to college. But I was the first man in our family to ever step foot in a college classroom. And I have FFA and dairy judging and things like that to thank for that. But with that experience of going off to college, was a great experience, but by the time I returned to the family farm, my brother was pretty well entrenched. He was 2 years older than me, and he had been a full-time farmer. I mean, literally since the afternoon that he walked out of high school of his senior year, he was a full-time farmer. And he's a great farmer and has done a wonderful job with our family farm. But I could pretty quickly see that after I finished college, it was best if I found something different to do in life rather than trying to, rejoin the family farm. My father was also very much involved in the family farm still at that point in time. And they've grown it into quite a large operation. My dad's retired now, and my brother runs that. And I say this because I'm very proud of my brother. He's a great farmer, but he's one of the best farmers in Ohio. He really is a great, great farmer. And so he's done a wonderful job with that. And so I've never had any regrets about taking and doing something else in life. Had a friend who said, hey, here's a job that might work for you. And they knew that I was looking and for a different career. And so I got into banking with the farm credit system, which helped with my farm background. But I had zero knowledge of banking and how it worked in the financial services world. So I was self-trained on the job over the years in that field.
Well, that's a question we had for you, was how you got into banking and what your degree was. And maybe you want to ask the question about where you went to school.
We're jumping. Some rapid fire?
Let's do that. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Let's do some rapid
we'll do
fire.
Some first before we do that. One question we ask everybody that comes onto the podcast is, what is your morning routine?
Yeah, my morning routine. Again, someone who grew up milking cows, right? You have to have a morning routine. That's just the way life is. And again, I know some of your guests say, I try to avoid a routine. I try to do what my body needs in the morning, but not so much for me. I'm up. I'm not one of those real early risers that is up at 3 or 4 in the morning, but the clock always has a 5 on it when I start in the morning, and I get up and go to the gym, or I go out to go for a run with some good colleagues of mine who also like to run. And that's how I start every morning, and make a shake and then go to my office. So that's my morning routine.
There's a motivation in numbers when it comes to running. That's not something that's for me, but I feel like
running is probably an exaggeration. Sometimes it's a fast walk or a trot or a little bit of a jog, and it just depends on how our knees feel that day. Yeah.
Right. Age changes that. I kind of got into cycling here a few years back just because the knee issues, but I'll let you take the first one.
Okay, we're going to start in with our rapid fire.
Okay.
What is the best thing that your company does?
The best thing that my company does, my current company, is help people. We help people. We help contractors grow their business with the financial services that we provide for them to offer to their clients. And then for the homeowners that take advantage of the financial services, they're able to have things for their home that they would not ever, be able to have otherwise. Yeah, so that's the best thing that we do. We help people.
We'll circle back to that one as well. One thing that's a little unique about this podcast, because of some of the things we had going on personally, we typically will send you a list and approve all these questions. So the only questions they don't know are the rapid fire questions, but I guess they're all going to be rapid fire for you.
Pretty
That's
much.
okay. That's the way it's been in my life for the whole life. Yeah.
So if I ask, finish this sentence.
Okay.
When I dance, I look like.
Terrible. I'm not a dancer. So again, another thing that doesn't come with the name, right?
Yeah, right.
But you mentioned your love for 80s bands, hair bands.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't mean that I love music.
Some head? Okay.
I love music, but I'm not a dancer. No.
Farm kids didn't dance, they were.
Nope.
Yeah.
On your first day as president, what would you do?
I would talk with the country about being courageous. And I think that we, in our political parties today, lack courage. Courage to do what we believe in, what we believe is right, rather than what the party or individuals would say we should do. And that's all about courage. And I think we as citizens need to be courageous too, in the way we lead our own lives. And so I would speak with the entire country about courage and being courageous and leading courageous lives.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
I think I see some of that coming back into play in the country. I think there was a period there was so much fear of how speaking out would affect you, and I'm starting to see that trend shift a little, so I really hope it continues, but we try not to get too political, so we're always a little nervous asking that question. The next one, what charities and organizations do you support?
4-H and FFA.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So I sit on the Ohio 4-H Foundation board and really have a passion for, again, helping people. You're going to see a trend here with me when it comes to that specific theme.
You know, I can endorse that completely. My kids all did FFA and 4-H. There were times they were doing projects and at 8, 10 years old, they're standing in front of a room and a group of peers and they have to deliver a speech and do all those things. And I think each one of them in life later will come back and recognize that that was very foundational. So if you're talking anybody in the audience that ever listens to this podcast, if you want a way to teach your kids leadership and how to work in a unit as a group and to work through projects, 4-H is a phenomenal program.
And it could be 4-H, it could be FFA, it could be any number of youth programs. Those are foundational in the way people are, just the way they're formed. For me, my personal story, if you give me just a moment from the rapid fire to share. When I was a senior in high school, I didn't know quite for sure what I wanted to do other than I thought I maybe would want to farm, right? Well, through the FFA state dairy judging contest, I was able to get first place in that contest when I was a senior in high school. And so I got a letter from Ohio State about, hey, why don't you come enroll at Ohio State and try out for our dairy judging team? And I had never really thought about going to college, but here I got this letter. Well, maybe I should consider this, right? I could continue dairy judging. I really enjoyed that. And so through my experiences in FFA and the folks that volunteered to put on contests and to take us to all these contests and to teach us kids how to do oral reasons and judge cattle and get up and present ourselves, that was really my ticket into college, from small town USA into college.
Right.
And there's any number of organizations that do similar things for kids in this country, and I just feel like any of those would be worthy of spending time with from, your time or treasure.
Right. And I know like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things like that do a lot of that leadership training, but I've seen the firsthand of the 4-H and what they do, and it is an incredible program. And I've had kids that played sports and other things, but it certainly has opened doors, and some of their classmates and even members that were in their group have went on into other agricultural fields that really the foundation was there. And so that was incredible.
And I think a common misconception about 4-H FFA is that you have to have livestock to work with, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
Now, they have programs that span all various types of projects and experiences. I say that those programs produce citizens, is what they do.
Right,
They produce
exactly.
citizens. It's not about, okay, a lamb at the fair or, some other type of agricultural related project. They've transcended that in the last several years. Yeah, they produce
because
citizens.
my kids didn't do any livestock either. It was just, they'll do photography, they'll do all kinds of things, which my oldest son ended up in architectural design, and a lot of it started out of 4-H.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you hit on one of my favorite topics. So I know it was a rapid fire question, so I'll stop now.
It was a very pointed one. There was some research that went into that. So
gotcha. Okay.
So you decided to go ahead and take up Iowa State on their offer then, or I'm sorry, Ohio State.
Ohio State, yeah. I took Ohio State up on their offer. I enrolled. I made the dairy judging team. And I tell people that I'm an Ohio State All-American. Not in football, but in dairy judging. So when I was a senior at Ohio State, I finished 9th in the nation in dairy judging. And so if you were in the top 10, you were considered an All-American. So I'm an Ohio State All-American.
Dairy cow judging.
Dairy cow judging. But then after that, I was thinking, okay, well, now is this the time that I go back to the family farm, right? And I was going through some of those decisions, and my advisor at the time said, hey, Joel, they're looking for a dairy judging coach for the University of Kentucky dairy judging team. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, they would not only pay you to coach the team, but they'd let you get your master's degree at the same time. And so I thought, well, now that sounds like a pretty good opportunity. So I took the University of Kentucky up on their offer, went down there, coached their dairy judging team for a couple of years. We had some good teams and did some great things. And I got a master's degree along the way as well. So that whole combination of events all started with my FFA dairy judging, which was preceded by 4-H.
Got you your free master's. I seen you went to Kentucky. I didn't know why. I'm a little surprised as somebody that went, and I'm just going to say it because you haven't yet.
I haven't.
The Ohio State. I see you even have it in your bio. Mm-hmm. So 2 questions. One, how could you, what's the story or the history behind the Ohio State, and how could you leave Ohio State and go to Kentucky? Because Ohio State fans seem to be very loyal.
Yeah, so I told everyone I needed a great basketball team to go along with my great football team, and since I have a degree from both schools, I can legitimately be a fan of the Buckeyes and the Cats. So, and I'm a big Kentucky Wildcats fan too. Love the time that I spent in Kentucky. My dad's family is from East Kentucky. People ask, what's your heritage? I tell people we've traced it all the way back to East Kentucky hillbilly. That's what we are. And my grandfather, the story is that they were so poor when they moved from East Kentucky to Northern Ohio to find work on the railroad that they had to borrow a horse. And so my grandfather, who was 13, and his 15-year-old brother, when they got up there, they had to return the horse and then walk back. So that's the story that they go
Incredible.
by. But they were on hard luck in East Kentucky, moved to Northern Ohio to find work on the railroad, and that's how the Oney family got up there. So, anyways, so I have Kentucky roots, and so it was a natural thing for me to make the transition down there. And in fact, I've lived in Kentucky twice because part of my career I was in a leadership role with a financial institution in Kentucky. Mm-hmm.
So jumping into banking, you've seen, with a 25-year career, I can imagine you've seen a tremendous amount of change with technology and a lot of things that happen. My first loan I got from the loan officer as I sat down and made the stupidest loan of my life was for a dirt bike.
Oh.
At 19 years old with no job. Because I was on the farm, and culturally, we didn't really get paid. So I had to do odd jobs at night in order to even earn money to make the payments, and he's like, yeah, I'll make you the loan because, I clerked your grandparents' sale and I banked, your uncles and your parents, and, I know where to find you if you don't make the payment. Well, that scared me for sure because he dropped all these names and I was not about to let my relatives know I couldn't make the payments. But That's nothing how this banking world works today.
But it's a part of the overall psychology of banking. When you know, I think, the people that are involved, especially as a borrower, the people that are looking at you and watching you, some of that carries some weight with your banker too, right?
Okay.
So yeah.
So I was being played.
Yeah, you were. He was saying, look who all's going to see this if you default,
you screw up,
if you mess this up, right? So yeah, there's some of that, but banking has changed a lot, but really is no different. At its core, all financial services are taking one person's money who is in excess and using it for something that somebody else needs it for, and then making a small margin in between, right? And so, the savings come in the form of CDs, savings accounts, those kinds of things, and then we as bankers then turn around and deploy those savings in the form of loans or purchases of bonds or other financial services that we offer. And in the process, we make just a tiny slice. But if you make a tiny slice on enough dollars, eventually it adds up. And my dad, being a simple guy with East Kentucky roots in many ways, always had a great way of summing things up in just a few words. And he always said, Joel, there's a reason why when you go into any town, the bank's the biggest building. And that's what he would always say. And it wasn't because, the bank was in any way doing anything that was illegal or immoral. It's just that they figured out a way to take, everybody's savings, make a small slice, redeploying that to help other people. So, if you've watched It's a Wonderful Life, the Bailey Savings and Loan, it really is that scene where they're talking about, well, your money is in Gary's house. It's not sitting here in the bank. So in a way, banking has not changed, right?
Okay.
But in many ways it has. It used to be all paper, no technology, manually underwriting, record books, those kinds of things.
The underwriting piece of it's interesting to me because that certainly has changed. I would imagine with the technology, they can define much closer and clearly, what the liabilities are and risk factors are on that.
Yeah, and really for loans up to probably $3 million, like in ag real estate, which is kind of one of the areas where the teams that I led specialized in over the years. A lot of that can be done with very little information now. And it's much more accurate than a traditional underwrite by deploying technology. And so that's the thing that I've seen is the deployment of technology into the banking world to make decisions more quickly and more accurately, which was difficult for a lot of traditional bankers and underwriters. And so even in the business that we have today, which is related to banking still, we use technology to deploy the bank's capital very quickly, very rapidly, and very accurately to borrowers, and with minimal information and no paper. So it's very, very different. Yeah, I think that at some point in time it'll get to the point where you won't go to a bank or into an office for much of anything anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I
That
think
is
too, you're
being
right.
minimized these days. So a lot of our audience, and I think you get this question some too, they're focused on trying to increase their credit score on their LLC.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for something like
Well,
that?
the first credit score that you want to work on the most is your individual credit score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you keep that really clean, your LLC will have a pretty good standing as long as the LLC has the financial statements to support the fact that they, are profitable and so forth. But the individual credit score is what's most important in just about any borrowing, whether it's personal or business. Because most of the time that business, that LLC, may or may not have a whole lot without the personal guarantee of the individual loan.
And that was, that's a question I have because we deal with that quite a bit where people are wondering how to build that because they want to borrow and not tie their personal assets to it. Mm-hmm. Do you have some tips on that?
Yeah, there's just 2 or 3 things, that are real simple, right? One, pay everything on time.
Right.
Don't let anything go to collection. or judgment. And then if you have credit cards, keep the balance low, because one of the things that if you have credit cards that are maxed out, even if it's only a $5,000 credit card, if it's maxed out, that hurts your score. Yep. So if you have $5,000 of credit card debt, but you have $30,000 available, that doesn't hurt your score. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if you get a new LLC and you start a new business, a new corporation, what are some things that a person should do? They've not made a loan. They want to make a loan. I understand typically it's going to go back solely onto your personal credit, but you might have 2-3 business partners. What are some things you would advise somebody to do in that case?
Yeah, definitely. The first thing is to have a great business plan. Be able to articulate to your banker, this is what we're going to do, why we're going to do it. These are the resources that we're going to need. These are how we're going to deploy those resources. And this is how we see it turning into, a profitable business venture. That's the main thing that the banker would want to see, especially if it's a startup. If it's just an iteration of a previous business, then typically you can go back and look at the history on the existing business. But if it's something new, then that's the thing you got to have, is a great business plan.
And you'd want that in writing. The days of just sitting down and giving a 10-minute narration is not going to work, right?
Yeah, have it in writing,
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And another piece of that, how important was it? And I don't know if you worked in more smaller banks or if you worked in large chain, like where they're, across the United States or national banks. Do you see a difference in how a person should establish relationships to be able to maybe increase their lending power?
You mean the relationships with the bank?
Right.
Bank themselves?
What are the things that are important?
Yeah, so I think the thing that is most important is being extremely transparent with your banker about what you're trying to accomplish and communicating that very well, whether it's a big institution or a small institution. And then having accurate information and documentation to support that, right? And if you're able to do those two things, then you gain trust really quickly with your bank. If you're not able to support what you are saying that you're trying to accomplish, or you're not even able to, build that relationship by articulating it to someone in the first place, being able to present things and support it really matters to banks.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Whether it's a small institution or large, and I've worked for both, and really have great experiences with both. Both have their place, big banks and small banks.
So in both cases, though, and I'm kind of driving this home because we deal with helping people establish credit, and I've done a lot of that over the years. So even on personal credit, it does benefit you, though, to have some loans. I mean, because there's also some theories out there where people try to pay cash on everything and don't have loans, and that can often backfire too.
That's right. You have to have some credit history to have a decent credit score, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to have something to be scored.
Right. Okay.
Separately, I'm Gage.
And I'm Bontrager.
Together, we are Gage Bontrager Consulting.
We work on changing your mindset,
Developing leaders,
building systems and processes
helping you grow personally and professionally
to achieve the success that you want personally and professionally.
however you choose to define success for you.
Reach out to us and follow us on social media or look us up on the website, and that will put you on a path to achieve what is missing in your life. Now, I just wanted to ask that and discuss that a little bit because of I know it's something people face all the time, and I don't think there's a lot of information often out there what people need to do to maybe have that relationship with the bank. I know one of the things I feel make a difference, and I'm curious to know your opinion, is just even trying to interact with my banker, and it might be even getting on a Rotary Club or somewhere I know he's at, maybe taking him golfing once in a while or trying to figure out how to build that. And I know you guys have to divide the line, but it helps build that transparency that you talked about earlier, rather than I do everything electronic, everything through the night deposit. I never walk in the branch. They don't see me. And then I come in and I want this big loan. And if they can see me and get, I think that's a piece of the transparency. I mean, am I accurate in that?
So I think what we're asking is how much of the human aspect is still relevant in that decision-making process.
It's very relevant. You know, and obviously your banker would love to see you involved in the community and spend time with you, you know, doing some leisure things such as golf. But really, where a person can help themselves to build that relationship with their banker is just to call and get on their schedule and to come in and sit with them with some scheduled time to talk very deliberately about what they want to accomplish with their business. And then the second best thing, maybe the first best thing, is invite them out to your business and let them see firsthand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I always said that, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth, you know, 1,000 pictures.
Right.
And a visit is priceless. And so anytime any of the bankers that were on the teams that I led wanted to do something, I'd say, hey, have you been out there to see it? What's it feel like? What's it look like? What was your impressions? And so those are the two things. Schedule some time to get on your banker's calendar in their environment, wherever that is. And bankers work, a lot of bankers work remotely today too. So it may be not in a traditional bank building.
Right.
And then invite them out and show them what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. No, and I've done some of that over the years, and I've been close enough friends with some of them that, you know, have said the same thing. So I just want to ask that because I know folks listen to this podcast, a lot of it just for knowledge they can gain maybe, and that'll help them in their business. So it really comes back to that human touch. I think we do a lot of things online, and it still comes back to those relationships and things, the interaction. I know for myself, I found it beneficial if I could just get on their calendar even and sit down and say, hey, I'm just thinking about doing this. What are the things I need to be looking for if this is what I'd want to do? What kind of capital, what kind of, you know, percentages of money would I need, or how would we leverage that? So is that?
That's exactly
Okay.
what a person should do. And the earlier, the better.
Right.
Yep.
And I've made some decisions to not do it out of those conversations, you know, if I was making different decisions.
Yeah.
So
I had a good friend the other day. We had lunch together, and he said, Joel, I need your opinion as a banker. If I was your client, would you advise me to buy this golf course? And
yes, if he gives away a free membership.
and I've, interestingly enough, I've financed a lot of golf courses over the years.
Okay.
Or the teams have. And I always told people the same thing when they went to buy a golf course, or a restaurant too, for that matter. If you can afford to pay for this without it making any money, then I'm your banker. If not, probably not your guy.
You got to make sure you figure out a way to be profitable.
And so he said, you know, you're probably telling me what I need to hear. I don't think I'm going to buy this golf course.
So eventually you decided to move on from the banking world and kind of start your own.
Mm-hmm.
What did that look like?
Well, it was something that I had thought about for years and years. I loved the things I did in banking, and mostly, again, gravitated towards leadership roles, and helped really two main employers I was with, one large and one smaller, over the years. Really was a part of some great things with both of them. But I always had this yearning, ever since my daughters were little, to potentially have a business of my own. That was a dream of mine. And so when I told myself when they were small that when I turned 50, they'd be grown and off and independent and doing their own thing. And that would be the time that I would step away from banking and do my own thing. And so at the age of 50, in the middle of the pandemic, I kind of fake retired, is what I tell people. And it was something that I had planned for many years, but when it was time, it was harder than I thought, and took a lot of that courage that I was talking about earlier to put some of the self-doubts and fears off to the side and say, you know what, come what may, I'm going to give this a try. And so that's what I did. And it was interesting. All the people that I knew from the banking world and even in my personal life, if they were younger than me, they would come up to me and they'd say, gosh, Joel, I hope I can do that someday. because here I was in the prime of my career, making more money than I had ever really thought I ever could have as a farm kid growing up in, little town, Ohio. And I stepped away from it. And then everybody that was older than me would say, gosh, Joel, I wish I'd have done that when I was your age.
Mm-hmm.
And I had nobody that came to me and said, what the heck are you thinking? And even though I was thinking that some myself, what the heck are you thinking? Everybody around me was thinking, wow, this really looked a whole lot more brave and courageous than what I was feeling, I'll tell you that.
Right.
But so many people said it, yeah, I wish I could do that someday, or I wish I would have done that when I was younger.
So I want to highlight that just a little bit, because we have folks that when we work with clients a lot in our consulting business, we will talk about just laying out a plan and setting those steps in place. Clearly, that's something you had done. You had understood what your calling in life was, how you were going to serve people, and what that looked like to you. So when that time arrived, how much did you lean back onto that piece of it? Because these were the goals that you had spelled out for yourself.
Yeah, and I'll be real honest too, that I had spelled out the goals of how to be able to do that when that time arrived, but I had not really spelled out exactly what I was going to do. Partially because, I look at my life in kind of like quarters, right? The first quarter of my life, I was a farm boy and a student and, coaching dairy and all those kinds of things. The second quarter of my life, I was a working professional and a father and family man, all those kinds of things, right? So it really didn't take a whole lot of time to, I had a few sketches of some business plans, but I really needed to take some time and really kind of step back and really evaluate, okay, Joel, what is it that you really want to do now that you've taken this plunge, And so I had a lot of partial business plans that I had kind of on the back shelf, but really kind of by accident fell into a business plan where I was helping some of my Amish friends with financing solutions for their portable storage buildings. And, through that, it took us to expand upon the financial services that we were offering. Next thing we knew, we pretty much had a small, fully fledged financial solution services business for contractors. And so that's what we do now.
So you segued us right into that. So tell us about it. That's where J Money comes in. That's the name of your business, correct? That you now have, and you basically fund buildings. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and that's where we started off, is in buildings. But now with the financial products and partnerships that we've aligned with, we can do pretty much any kind of home improvement financing. And what we do is we lay the platform in the hands of the contractor or the builder. And then what they can do is they can offer loans pretty much on the spot to their clients to pay for the things that they are providing to them. So,
and those things are unique or specific to what? Like portable buildings, pole barns?
Any kind of home improvement. But we are, due to our roots, we started off in the portable buildings, and that's where most of our specialty is today.
Okay.
That, steel buildings, pole buildings. We also have a fair number of roofing companies, outdoor hardscaping, landscaping, patios, those kinds of companies.
Okay.
Are you still taking on new clients?
Yes, we are.
Awesome.
Took on another new one today. So
okay.
Yeah. And this component of the business really just started expanding about 15 months ago. And we're up to almost 70 clients now with this part of the business. So it's
we'll certainly
growing
get
rapidly.
we'll certainly get your information in on this at the end, so people can reach out to you, because we have a pretty good audience that works in construction. So that certainly could be beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you do outside of this now, or are you just primarily focused on this piece of it?
Well, I have a few other hobbies. I'm one of the few bankers that you'll ever meet that doesn't golf. So having grown up dairy farming, kind of my hobbies are things that are work-related kind of things, is what a lot of people would look at them as. My favorite hobby has always been real estate. And so we have a small real estate company that buys historical properties and renovates those. I don't like the word flip, because to me that doesn't do justice to what we try to do when we select an old property to bring back to life. And again, that's about, I think, another part of my persona. One of my favorite purposes is helping people, but I also kind of like this building community piece of life. And that could be building a community within a business where you're building teams, or building a division of a financial institution, or it could be building a community that has been let go, maybe like my little small town of, small town Ohio that
Right.
that has, like many towns, had some struggles. We did a renovation project there recently, and it was a house. I'll be honest, we probably should have just tore it down, right? And it was a house that I'd owned for several years, and but no, we thought, we need to do something for this community.
Right.
And so we took this house that probably should have been torn down, put some money into it, and resold it. And we actually did okay with it, from a profitability standpoint. But a couple of times, I was thinking to myself, gosh, why are we doing this? It's a lot of effort, a lot of capital, relatively small margin, but it's the community piece of that really,
right.
I think, helped to. That's what drives a lot of the real estate side of my business, is the passion I have for community building.
Okay.
So when you're renovating these historical homes, you keep it as close to original as possible.
We try to, unfortunately, some of these historical homes, people have torn a lot of the historical components out over the years. But if all those are there, we take those historical components, preserve them, maybe set them off the side, catalog them or whatever, and then we put those all back in after we gut them to the studs and put the new electric and HVAC and modern kitchens and all of those kinds of things in them. So many times it feels like you're walking into a home that's 150 years old, but it's got all the modern amenities. I got hooked on this early. When my brother was 20 and I was 19, I think, we gutted an old farmhouse to the studs. It's a wonder the thing didn't collapse on us, but it's my brother's home today. He lives in that house, and I've been hooked on fixing up old houses ever since. That house was built in 1839.
You make it sound a lot classier. I flipped quite a few houses over the years, and I had a really close friend of mine that one day we just, bad weather, decided to go to a conference, and it was the first coach I ever hired. And it was the craziest experience ever. But, out of that whole experience, it's really opened so many doors. And, we did everything that a banker would tell you not to do to even pay for the coach. But it has worked out for both of us. But it's interesting how you can revitalize those homes. And a lot of folks, I find, don't have the perception maybe to walk into a house and understand what $10,000 will do to a home, or $20,000, and the balance of what that'll do to the value of it. So I haven't gotten into some of it. I guess I've done a historic home once or twice, but typically I'm trying to get something I can put a little bit more nail polish on and move it quicker. So.
Oh, and do we have stories? Stories that you could tell, whether it be in the banking world or in the renovating of homes, just, buying houses that you could stand on the first floor and see light all the way through the second floor in the attic and stuff, all the way through the roof, it's houses like that. But, you talk about preserving some of the historical characteristics. We had one house one time that was really bad shape, but it had these beautiful ornate fireplaces in it. And when the team was gutting it, I took a break from the banking for the day and went down and was just seeing what they were doing. Well, one of these fireplaces had fallen off the wall while they were gutting it. It was in a pile over against the wall. And I said, what are you going to do with that? And they said, well, we're getting ready to put it in the dumpster. I said, no. And so I said, save it. And so we got that put off the side. And then one of my daughters and we went down on like a Saturday afternoon. We put that fireplace all back together on the wall once all the drywall and everything was in place. And that was one of the most fun, memorable projects, was doing that, putting that fireplace back together with my daughter that one day.
Do your kids enjoy that now, or you talk about those stories, I'm sure?
Yeah. So they do. We have lots of good memories of working on old houses over the years. And my one daughter, Maddie, she is a very creative person. She's a director at a high-end salon here in town, and she does all of the design work. She picks out all the chandeliers and the lights, the faucets and countertops and cabinets. She does all of that for me. So I'm very proud of her. And my other daughter is a labor and delivery nurse who's studying to be a midwife. So
Oh, awesome.
Greatest accomplishment in life by far. Two wonderful children.
That's awesome. That's
Not just they're wonderful human beings, and that's what
Right.
makes me the most proud.
right.
Yeah.
Contribute back to society and serve other people. I think that's back to your component you talked about, having courage. I think if we can get the message out to folks too, to understand that, we often complain about politicians and maybe our governments in different ways, but the change is really going to come out of just being good citizens and not being selfish and making a difference in other people's lives. And so it's just fun to see kids do that type of thing, and to hear that your daughters are doing, really, they're modeling what you taught them. I mean, whether you think you did or not, that's really what they're doing.
The thing is that I think that parents take too much blame and too much credit, because at the end of the day, these kids, when they become adults, they're their own human beings. They might be a little bit like me or a little bit like their mom, but they're their own unique creation.
Right.
And I feel very fortunate that both of mine are good human beings.
I will back you up on that. I think one thing that I see people do, and I see these younger, clearly, I think we're similar in age, and we were going to be the worst generation. We were worthless. That was the trend. We liked rock and roll music and
hair bands. They were the best.
Yeah, it was
them.
just all these things were going to be the demise of our generation. And then we have, the millennials and all these other generations. And the things that I'm finding, though, out of the younger generation, the millennial crowd and younger, they really want authenticity. And fake doesn't work. And back to what you were saying about your faith and where you set in all of that, I think there was a period of time where, parents and community leaders could tell kids, this is what you need to do and you're going to have a good life, and they just did it. That's not the case anymore. They want real, they want authenticity. And I think it's a responsibility we all have as human beings to try to live good, transparent lives that don't appear fake.
Yeah.
And give this young generation, and I say young because we're a little bit older than a lot of people, give them good reason to understand what they see in us is exactly who we are and what we believe in and what we do. And yet allowing them the latitude to make their decisions and be able to adjust and choose things for themselves. So I appreciate you bringing that up for sure.
Definitely.
I will go back to one thing that struck me is you talked about having the relationship with the banker, being transparent, having them out to your place, having them in, all this planning and things you did. But when you went out on your own and quit your job, it didn't sound like you had a tremendous plan. And I'm wondering if you're sitting here today going back, you didn't really follow your own advice.
Well,
I'm just calling you out.
Yeah, it's a great point. It really is. Part of that was because I was in a position, fortunately, I had been successful enough in my career that if I wanted to retire, I could have retired.
Okay.
And so I tell people, though, that I fake retired.
Right?
Because I knew that I was going to do something else. But the thing is I was so focused for all those years on my children and on my career that I knew I was going to do this someday. But I didn't take the time during those years to really figure out what that would be. And so I did quite a bit of traveling for about 2 years after I stepped away, and really spent a lot of time just really asking myself a lot of questions about, okay, what is it that you really want to do in life? What is it that is really meaningful to you? Some of that, it sounds cliche, right? But I had to go on a little bit of a self-discovery mission before I could really decide what I was going to do. And what I discovered in that process is that if it involved helping people and building community or building a family or team, that it didn't really matter what I did if it was accomplishing some of those things. If it wasn't accomplishing those things, I would just have to scrap those ideas. And that was a real freeing, I think, kind of journey for me. Because once I discovered, okay, yeah, as long as what I do helps people and builds communities, it doesn't matter what I do. I just do what I think I want to do because it's fun or nice, or I've got the skill set to do it, as long as it's accomplishing those things.
So I really want a very honest answer.
Sure.
You can contradict what I have written, but I talk about in the very first chapter of the book I wrote.
This one?
Yes, that one.
Yeah, I've got a signed copy here.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. But I talk about knowing what your mission or your purpose statement for life is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I follow it up with core values.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talk about setting goals. And what I see is, from what you just said, that's really what you did. You knew what you were about, you knew what your values were, and then when it was time to set goals, you just took the time to let it sort out.
Yeah, we go at it. I was trying to go at it, and I think a lot of people in general go at it from the wrong direction. They're like, well, what do I do? Is the first question. The first question needs to be, why do I do it, right? Yeah. Why do I do it? And that's the toughest one to answer. That's the one where you have to really peel back who you are as a human being and try to just go on this self-discovery mission, right? And the word I use is purpose, right? But maybe it's your why. There's a lot of different words you can use, but you have to discover what that is. And once I discovered what that was, then it was like, okay, what I do is not nearly as important as why I do.
Yeah.
Completely. No, that's something that once a person can grasp that concept, it really just changes their life. It's huge.
And so, Gary, you did call me out, but that's exactly the reason why I didn't know for sure what I was going to do. I had to find my why first.
Well, I just wanted to circle back on that a little bit because I was just curious because I know you work with people, and I wasn't trying to be offensive.
Oh, no, that was great. That was a perfect question.
Anyway, any questions you have that you can think of, Heather, as we start to wrap this up a little bit?
What's your connection to the bearded butcher?
Oh, wow.
There's where I wanted to go. I wanted to ask him who the most famous people were that he has ever made loans to.
So, like I said, if the walls of our offices could talk as bankers, it's, I always said that beyond someone's family, their financial situation is one of the things that they hold most, near and dear to themselves, right?
Right.
It's one of the things that's most impactful on your life, right? And so as bankers, we had a chance to help people with their dreams and to accomplish their goals. And I think I can tell this, even because it's been long enough ago that the laws of confidentiality are probably over by now, right? So when I was a young banker, and I want to say it's been about 2001, a guy pulls into my parking lot, and he's on a Harley Davidson, and he walks in, and he's got a big beard and this huge scar on his face, and he said he wanted to get a loan to buy this butcher shop or to buy or refinance this butcher shop, and couldn't find the financing for it. And so we talked for a while, and I thought, this is the kind of guy that I think that we should try to do something for. So we put together some financial statements, and sure enough, we got the loan together, and he got it, and we became really great friends over the next few years as I watched him kind of build this up. And it was a lot of hard work for him and his family, and he had 3 boys that were involved in the operation too that were coming of age. They're all great big kids. They all looked like they could play middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears or something, and they would eventually come in, and they got loans for homes, and I helped them with that as well. And then I took a promotion and went to a different part of the world for a while. And when I came back, I started hearing about the bearded butchers.
Right.
And so, these 3 young men ended up becoming what is now known as the bearded butchers. They've got, I think hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers on YouTube.
I think they're approaching 1 million if they haven't passed it.
Yeah, and a lot of their videos have millions of views. I mean, but they were just, to me, they were just the salt of the earth kind of people that really took a business and built it with a family from ground up. And I love that part of the story. And then the fact that they turned it into this
it's incredible.
social media phenomenon is really pretty cool too.
And just for the audience, I mean, they just had a small slaughterhouse on their farm, and I've actually been there, so I know the part of Ohio you're in. So you grew up in good farm country.
Yeah.
And I'm from Iowa, so I know what good farm country looks like, good soils and things like that. But those guys really talk about younger generations being just really aware of what technology can do and how that's elevated everything for them. And we're giving them a free plug, but they're just wonderful human beings.
That's the thing I like the most about them. Sincerely great people.
Yeah, they're just very wonderful people. But I just was surprised when I first met you and you tell me what part of Ohio you came from, and then I asked if you knew them, and I would have never believed the story you just shared if you hadn't told me. So that was fun.
And there's lots of great stories like that.
Yeah,
That's the
I'm
things
sure
that
there
I cherish the most about banking is you saw generations of people, grandfather, son, and even the grandchildren at times that would enter in through an operation, and you could be part of the financial success. That, and then I think the other great thing about the banking world that I've loved maybe even more than helping the customers was helping the teams that we built.
Right.
Helping people to find great careers and teaching them how to be bankers and to have a job they could be proud of and to be a part of something really great and to help go perpetuate that helping of other people, through the other people that I trained over the years. That was some of the most rewarding things about my banking career.
So you referenced your father a little bit earlier, and then we're going to wrap this up. One thing that's so apparent is your high need to serve others and your focus on that. And is that something, though, that as you look back at your parents, and I know you even talked about, your grandparents and uncles, maybe taking a horseback and things like that. I mean, do you see that was kind of a big deal in your family lineage, that they served other people, or was it so much survival back then?
Yeah, there was a lot of survival, right? Without getting into too much detail, you know how hard it is coming up on a farm sometimes. Right. And, when my dad had 4 little children, me just being a baby, he walked out of the factory floor and said he was going to become a full-time farmer. And, there were some tight times to follow that. And so some of it was just survival. But I always did see my dad serving the community. He served on the school board, and he was the chair of the school board, a very tough, thankless job, but that was his way of giving back. And he would provide a venue on the farm for tours for the school and things like that. So I think I do get that to some extent from my dad.
Right.
But then I think I have it at a different level even than he did. I've studied, we've all studied the love languages, and mine is, without a doubt, is service. That's
Awesome.
The way I love people, and that's the way I feel loved. And so it's just part of who I am, is helping people.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I can identify well with that. If people want to reach out and contact you, how do they find you? Where do they find you?
So easiest way is to hit our website, jmoneyllc.com. And always can reach me as well by email, which is joel@jmoneyllc.com.
And we found you on Facebook and LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn page is thoroughly filled out. They can get some good information there and contact you there as well.
Yes.
Joel, I want to thank you for joining Heather and I on Mindset Growth Podcast. It's been our honor. I don't believe we meet people by accident. I believe there's a purpose behind all of that. And to meet you a few weeks ago was just an honor. And I know my life is better knowing you. And so I appreciate you taking the time to come in and sit on the set and joining us at Mindset Growth Podcast.
Thank you. This has been fun for me, and I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And with that, folks, we want to thank you for joining us on another episode of Mindset Growth Podcast. Please, if you like this episode, share it. If you have questions, send us a message, and we will follow up with you. Until next time on Mindset Growth Podcast.